Hello, you're here with Ian Peterson today, medical hemp researcher and CBD researcher. For the last 7 years working in state licensed medical facilities and the last 18 years working in medical cannabis. Our research today has brought us to the field of equines, of which, if you're familiar with my work, I've been featured in Equine Wellness Magazine, multiple issues of Natural Horse Magazine, and many different pet publications as well as industry publications across the country. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about mood and temper with your horse, which I think is very, very important. I think that's probably the key driving force in your horse's health and its ability to stay healthy is mood and temper. As I think that is with all living beings as well as ourselves, we can agree. So we're going to jump right in today and talk just a little bit about mood, temper, and CBD. So again, I'm going to talk just a little bit about the mood and temper of our horses. Now, we understand that, due to many different circumstances, our horses can, have a variety of different moods and tempers, some which benefit greatly, depending on in which those horses are competing possibly, or in which those horses play, or in just which those horses have a day-to-day interaction with us. But we do understand that they are just like us. They're just like humans, and they have they feel different every day, just like we do. So we want to really understand that. So in our work with working with horses over the past many years, we've learned some great key things about this, and I'd love to share them with you. So talking about CBD and anxiety, for instance. Now, horses are under a great deal of anxiety for many different reasons, specifically in competition, but in many other ways, horses are under anxiety during treatments from the veterinarians. Shoeing, saddling, there's many different reasons. Transport. We all know that this really can throw off the mood and temper of your horse, and I think it's important that we keep our horses in a good place, and I think giving them the natural beneficial supports that they need to assist in those types of very important and necessary places to be. So with that being said, we're really going to talk about CBD and how that can affect your horse. So when we talk about anxiety and we talk about what happens when we have anxiety, or a horse has anxiety, they really have an abundance of endorphins and serotonin release and a lot of different things that are happening in their brain and obviously throughout their body. Now, as we know, we get afraid, we are scared, we have the fight or flight instinct. So a lot of these things are kind of happening just normally in your horse's day-to-day life. If they meet somebody new or they come across somebody new, as you know, it definitely takes a little bit of time. And so with that being said, we really want to do our best to support our horse in every way with their anxiety. That's obviously going to relate to temper, as we'll talk about next. But in supporting the anxiety, what we can really do is by supporting them with the CBD treatments, what it does is by supporting the internal system with these phyto-rich cannabinoids, what it does is it really works, as we were talking about in our previous segment, for cell communication. And we see this typically in neurological disorders, as we found with many different children we've worked with and or pets. The neurological disorders have an overage of involuntary responses. And that could lead to seizures, that could lead to many different things. And we'll talk about those in other segments. We're really going to focus on anxiety now and temper. But when we talk about those involuntary responses, we're talking about anxiety and fear. So I think it's key for us and very important for us to understand that by supplying our horse's endocannabinoid system, these phyto-rich beneficial cannabinoids, it gives our horse the ability the horse's cells the ability through these cell communication centers that we've talked about, the CB1 and CB2 receptors, it gives them the ability to send these messages in a proper way instead of in such an involuntary and overstated manner. It also regulates some of these signals in the serotonin and the overage and response that they're having, and that would be the fight or flight. Our initial research in working with soldiers and vets specifically, that had been involved in military service is that they had an extremely heightened fight or flight instinct at certain times, and that the serotonin levels were extremely enhanced. And so what we've been able to do is in our research and working with these veterans, and of course with many other living beings, is to be able to supply their body with just a natural beneficial substance that naturally, by supporting their endocannabinoid system, relates to some of these disparities and involuntary responses that they're having at a central nervous level. So this is your horse having the fight or flight instinct or anxiety or temper or being being moved, and they're just really off kilter. So pre to a treating, pre to shoeing, pre to a saddling, previous to travel, what we can do is we can actually give the horse CBD, and within about 45 minutes to an hour, that's going to start to become bioavailable. And what it really does is it starts to calm a lot of those involuntary responses that the horse is having at that neurological level, which is very, very important, because what we're doing is we're not sedating the horse. Typically is when, typically in the veterinary field, you either assign a depressant or a stimulant. Now, we understand in our field that we don't work with these types of specific drugs. We work with all natural supplements that trigger these types of responses in our body. So the CBD actually can work as trigger a stimulant response, but what it's doing is it's stimulating the endocannabinoid system and then the central nervous system, and what it's doing is it's supporting the cell communication, and that cell communication is the overage of this abundance, we'll say, of these involuntary feelings that are happening at the horse's level. And so we're able to calm those, which is very, very important, because then your horse within 45 minutes to an hour previous to any of these things is very calm. And I think that's very important, because I think as we approach anything in life, we need to be in a good state of mind and in a good state of body. For instance, we don't want to compete when we're sick or when we're not completely confident about how we're feeling, I think, or we don't want to do high-level activity, because we can really risk injury. You don't want to, if at all your immune system is compromised, or you're not in the best place, from anxiety, you're really second-guessing what you're doing constantly and second-guessing every movement that you're making, and that's really exacerbating the condition. So when we talk again about anxiety, it's really about getting the proper beneficial cannabinoids that can support your horse's endocannabinoid system, that then relates to these central nervous level functions, and essentially will calm your horse and help them through many different issues, whether that's, again, the treating, the saddling, the traveling, a lot of different things. So that's one really key piece for you guys. Now, I think next we're going to talk a little bit more about some of the more severe anxiety and temper issues that we can have with the horse, and that can really speak from a physical standpoint. And so I think it's important from a physical standpoint that by supplying the horse with these beneficial natural cannabinoids, it can give the horse's body the ability to really support itself, so that it's not then from a key issue that it may be having, it's not then compounding. So we can really support to nip that in the bud, and that's really going to, obviously contribute to your horse's temper, is that they're healthy. Their injuries, for instance, when we've worked with horses in a booting experience, we've had some of the fastest turnarounds that you may have ever seen in a booting experience with horses that were, essentially had almost full-blown laminitis or were ready to put out to pasture. So some of the experiences that we've had, both physical and mental, have spoken to extreme turnarounds with the horses due to either a trauma or just an emotional trauma, maybe being separated by the owner. We had a specific case where one of the horses was separated from their owner, was living with the daughter's mother at that time. And what ended up happening was the horse ended up creating an issue in its hoof by rubbing that hoof over and over on a rock, and it really created an issue where it compromised the life of the horse. And by just simply supplying the horse with these cannabinoids, it was able to calm the temper and bring down those levels of anxiety. And then, at that point, it was able to start to, then posture again once we got it in the boot, but it really started with anxiety, the temper first, because that was what led to the actual physical issue. So the anxiety, the temper is what we want to speak to, and then the booting process in that specific case was probably about 45 days, which is one of the shortest booting experiences that we've ever seen, when that horse is about to push through the bottom of its hoof by about a 1/16 of an inch. So, from our experience, we've been working with horses for about 3.5, 4 years now, I think about 4 years. Maggie was our first horse that we worked with here in the Valley, and, from that, we've been able to gain a lot of knowledge, and we're very thankful for our counterparts out there. I'd like to go ahead and thank some of the other educators that we've been working with, and that have been really contributing to their own field specifically, that we can really hats off to. So I'd like to give a personal hats off today to Dr. Julie Lee. I'd like to give a personal hats off to Dr. Judy Morgan. Thank you for everything you girls do. You're incredible ladies in the industry. I'd like to give a shout out to veterinarian Gregory Lucas. I know you're really pushing hard for awareness and education in the field. And Billy Hokeman over at Answers Pet You guys are doing some great things as well and have been in the community for many years. Also, Dr. Odette Sutter, we see you doing things in the community, so we just really wanted to recognize some of those people in the community and in the pet and horse community that have been doing great things. So thank you for all you do, and again, thank you veterinarius.com for hosting this talk today. It's been a great platform for us, and we're really happy to be able to reach such a holistically aware audience that is looking for natural remedies. So thank you so much again to our audience, and you have a wonderful day.